I'm good. This is going to be fun, I hope. And
Yeah, we had a few technical difficulties. It seems to be the theme of this weekend, but you know what? We got it licked, and that's the important thing. But we are live and we are broadcasting, and I'm very happy to have everybody joining us tonight. So thank you for your patience, and let's all prepare to get lost in space.
all right, where do we want to start? Want to start with the very beginning, the very first episode. I remember very well watching this as an 8-year-old, sitting in front of my grandmother's TV in her side of the house, and just looking up at October 16th, 1997, and thinking, wow, that's so far in the distant future. And now it's 20, how many years ago? 25? I don't know.
Yeah, that was actually 20. It's coming up on 23 years ago. Yeah, and it's crazy too, Lou, that you're mentioning too, because this show, Lost in Space, if I remember correctly, it premiered in September of 1965 for the first season, and it was taking place literally almost like 30 some years in the future. So that was a huge span where they were sending, a whole family into space to colonize a planet that was, close to the closest planet to us, Alpha Centauri.
That's right. And that was, the Gemini program was going on in reality. And that was just two men in a little capsule. And so this was like, wow, the future, well, it still hasn't really happened yet, unfortunately. But,
No.
We're getting there. It takes time. So
absolutely. And the interesting thing too is we were talking on Friday night. This was Irwin Allen's second series that he actually had conceived. He had done Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which had premiered in 1964, and then he went on to do Lost in Space. Now, if I remember correctly, the pilot for Lost in Space was also filmed in 1964, and what was very interesting was that the characters, it included the entire Robinson family, but there was a little bit of different roles that were taking place. You had, Professor John Robinson. You had his wife, Maureen, who was a physicist, I believe. They had daughter Judy, who was an actress, if I remember correctly.
Comedy.
What's that?
She was supposed to postpone her career in the musical comedy field.
That's right, yes, musical comedy. And then you had Penny. You also had Will, and, he was, the children were brilliant. But also, Don West, I do not believe, was a pilot. He was also a scientist. So they all were going to be in suspended animation, and they were going to go, and they were going to be heading there. But it was due to the asteroid that they went through that put them off course, and they crashed. So it was really going to be like Swiss Family Robinson, only it was in space, and that was the main difference. But
it was supposed to be a 97-year mission too.
Yes.
And that was, I would think the people on the ground wouldn't be too enthusiastic about never seeing their project, through fruition and come to fruition rather. And so they changed it to 5 years after once it got going as a series.
Yeah. So it was a lot different than the way it was originally conceived. And what happened was, I guess they were thinking that, they were going to go with the pilot, and when they, decided about making it into a series, they wanted to have some conflict, and that's what made them actually have the added characters, if I'm not mistaken, am I right? Of Dr. Smith and the robot.
Smith and the robot.
Yeah. Which was really cool. That really added to the dynamics of the series. Actually having a villain, because here it was shifted where Dr. Smith was basically an enemy agent who was on board before the Jupiter 2 took off, and he was basically plotting to have the robot destroy the ship 8 hours after takeoff, and he got trapped on board. Right. He literally was getting very nervous because they were reprogramming and do some things, and he was in the lower level, and he was waiting for the engineers to clear out, and then they cleared out. And then he's like rushing to the controls, and he's trying to reprogram everything, and then he's heading for the ladder, and then he decides, oh no, I got to go back, and then he came back down, and then he's scurrying to get up, and then you hear the announcer go, verified, all hatches secured, and then he gets right to the hatch, and then boom, it closes, and he's like, oh my God.
On it and saying, let me know. how nobody could see him through the window when he's like waving, I don't know, but well, that's what do you call it? License.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, the lights were so bright, that's why you couldn't see him anyway. But yeah, the character, of course, as we all know, started out much more sinister.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He got this kind of buffoon, really, hey, William, save me, my back. The character that I've actually developed into in real life, I find that I'm a lot like Smith now. That's not good. I find myself just saying things like him, and it's like, oh, I've become Dr. Smith, and it's kind of scary. Anyway, what's next? What else we got here? What do we want to talk about?
Well, I guess we could just talk about, there were 3 seasons of Lost in Space, and every season was so different. I mean, the first season, as you when it started out, I mean, it was essentially that. Well, hang on a second there. First season, when it started out, I would just want to make sure everybody can see. We are broadcasting, and I actually thank you everybody that's joining us, and I want to just give a shout out real quick to Heather. Jen Foss, hey, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. And Mike, thank you for that tidbit about my notes, my Post-its. Yeah, scientific information there, classified, so don't tell anybody. And hi again, Warren. How are you guys doing out there? Thanks for joining, and I really appreciate having you on here. Like I said, we were having some technical difficulties earlier on, but I think we pretty much got them licked, and we are broadcasting from Pohatcong, New Jersey, and also in Woonsocket, Rhode Island is where Lew is at. So we're all together here, and then yep.
Close enough.
And my son Ryan's online. Hey Rye. Hey Jeff Rubel. Mary Beth. How are you? Thanks for joining us, Captain Phil.
Yeah.
We have the whole gamut, Lew.
The gang's all here.
Yeah, everybody's joining us, which is great. And we really didn't talk about this. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So this is a nice opportunity for us to all be together and just, talk about stuff that we really like. And this is what the whole basis of this show is to do. We're going to do this twice a week, Fridays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 7 p.m., provided I start on time. And, talk about classic science fiction television shows of the 1960s and 70s. So, stay tuned for, different shows coming down the pike. But getting back to Lost in Space with you, Lew. Yeah, I definitely, yes. I would have to say that, all 3 seasons were definitely different, and they all had their own sort of tone, if you would say, especially with the first season being, I'm actually going to take this information down because
far more serious than the first season.
Yeah.
Of course. You can see Jonathan was starting to sneak in a little bit of humor, maybe halfway through the show, maybe even a little earlier on, but subtle. There was just a little bit. Then by year 2, of course, he became totally out there.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is too with that whole process, it was very subtle because in the very first, I would say 6 or 7 episodes, I mean, he was really, he was trying to kill them, and he was doing anything he could. I mean, if the Robinsons were going to be separated from the family, he was programming the robot to, eliminate them. But he was really beginning to have a rapport with them, and especially with Will. I mean, that was something that they came up with in the first, the very first episode. I mean, you could feel the tension between Will and Dr. Smith, but still, he was with him in the derelict when they, were exploring the alien ship, and Will really didn't have a lot of patience with him. But still, when they had crashed and they had gone, onto the planet, and he found Dr. Smith made the comment that that Will was out there, and then and then he says to John Robinson, "Why is he out there?" And then he goes, "Well, what does it mean?" And he said, "Well, you don't understand. The robot's out there." And then he's like, "Well, yeah." And then he's like, "Well, maybe the robot will find him," And it was just like, you could see.
What will he do? He says, "I bring him back."
Right. Exactly. So that aspect.
Will outsmarted him, of course.
Yeah, of course.
By playing a chess game, as I recall.
Yes, to check his circuits, which was really cool.
Great.
But
what else would you do?
Yeah, of course. But let me ask you something, Lou. In the first season,
Yeah.
I mean, there were literally 29 episodes in the first season. Which ones would you say were your favorite? And we'll discuss some.
Well, I kind of go with the majority on this. And the first 5 were the best. They could have made a nice long movie out of that, actually.
Yeah.
After that, they were all okay, but there were a couple that were better than others. And if I had the list in front of me, I could kind of pick and choose which ones are good and which ones aren't. I'm trying to think of a bad first season episode. Probably, I never, and this in the minority of this, but I never cared much for the pirate thing.
Oh, Captain Tucker.
I never bought that whole concept, and nah, it wasn't for me. And then they brought him back again, and Albert Salmi was a great actor.
He really was. He was.
But he was doing a real stereotypical pirate. Like,
Yeah.
and that was kind of, even as a kid, I found that a bit ridiculous, to be honest. But some people love that episode. And, I'm not going to argue with them, but it's just not my personal favorite. There's probably some other ones too, but
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you're saying. Like,
was pretty stuff.
oh, I'm sorry, Lou, I lost you. What did you say?
We don't have technical difficulties. Oh, we didn't have technical difficulties again, did we?
We did.
We're still on. Oh, okay.
But we're working through them. Oh, real quick, I just want to say a shout out to Kevin out there. Hey, Kevin, great to see you out there. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Diane. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining. And John and Sue are also joining in too from and part of our Trek Conderoga family up there. So I really appreciate everybody coming in here. So it's really cool to see everybody. And then
I'm
also,
gonna get up there one of these days too.
no, I'm telling you, Lou, it is awesome. I mean, the Star Trek set tours.
Everything I've seen looks great.
It really is. We'll talk more about that too when we do classic Trek. But yeah, no, I mean, for me, I loved the Derelict. I thought that actually had a lot of excitement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, plus you had the full-size Jupiter too. I mean, that set was only probably used in maybe 3 episodes. I mean, they at times
Two,
would,
I think.
or maybe even you're right too. Yeah, that and Visit to a Hostile Planet.
But they did use that in the early episodes when they were exiting the ship. Remember when it had kind of a long ramp, the robot came down like right after they crashed?
Yes.
That was that same set. They just built up dirt and something around it and all kinds of stuff to make it look like it had crashed and it was buried in the ground a little bit.
Oh,
But that was that same set. If you would have seen that from the side, you might have seen the landing gear actually holding it up. I'm not sure, but there's no interior to that set.
Yeah.
So they had to, they discovered at one point, this is not going to work for the robot and everything constantly. So easier access inside and out. They just decided to build a separate set. And that's what you ended up seeing with the little foundation along the edge, which always bugged me. But
Yeah, right.
that was to hide that was just to hide all the wiring and everything that went into it. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what I read somewhere.
No, I think you're right about that. That's an excellent tidbit of information about that. I always loved it when you got to see the full size set though.
Actually, that set was one of the most expensive done. I think. Was it like $250,000? I think it cost, maybe more. Maybe it was 500,000.
Wow.
To build that thing. And that's at the time was like, wow. That was the most expensive pilot ever shot too at the time.
I believe it.
So there's a lot of firsts in there. For a space series that was scored with actual music intentionally for the series, and it wasn't just stuff lifted from other old movies and stuff like Superman series did. One because I love that. All that music was lifted from other productions, and lots of based on the original soundtrack. John Williams, no doubt.
Yes, I mean, and he was listed as Johnny Williams, and that was Johnny Williams, and then he went on to do.
I get mistaken for him all the time, by the way. Why? I can't imagine him.
He was great. He was great, and he is great.
I've seen him in concert very number of times, and I always want to do some Lost in Space stuff, but he probably doesn't own the rights to it, and that's why he can't do anything with that. But who knows?
That's probably so true though. But I mean, when you think that he started out doing classic science fiction television, and then the next decade he went on to do Star Wars. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, his music resonates.
I didn't make a connection. when I first saw Star Wars, I remember I didn't make the connection at first, and then I'm listening to this music. I said, "Why does this music sound so damn familiar?" And then it's like, "Wait a minute." I looked up Lost in Space, which I hadn't at the time watched in a number of years, and I said, "Oh, of course, John Williams. There you go." Especially when that big transport thing, remember, with R2D2 was on? What do they call that thing?
Oh,
like a big...
Are you talking about the transport for the Jawas or the
name for it? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, where they first got R2D2 out, and there's the big tracks. That thing, the music that he put behind that actually sounded a lot like the Chariot music, and that's when it hit me. That,
okay.
This is familiar.
That's an excellent point, Lou.
There.
Yeah, he really did. Oh, yeah, you know what?
What up?
Sue was saying, yeah, the Landcrawler. And Mike Rizzo, hey, Mike, thanks for...
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. Mike, thanks for joining us. And he was saying about there was many different types of composers that that were a part of all this. Yeah, Sandcrawler, not Nightcrawler. Sandcrawler. Thanks, Mike. Yep. Yeah.
I'm called the Nightcrawler. I like that.
Lou, you know what? Your connection is breaking up a little bit.
Yours was too. I was going to say your voice cut out a bit.
Nope.
It's okay now. But
Oh, okay. We're on it.
technology.
Technical difficulties, yeah. But no, that was great stuff. But part of the thing was, when the Jupiter 2 was down, it was down for the entire first season. But I mean, the stories pretty much were family based. I mean, when you look at it, there was always almost like it was sort of moralistic and very family orientated, which was really good. And they really seemed to keep that type of that theme resonating. And there was always that special music, that piece. And in fact, I remember Bill Mumy saying that he loved it, when he was doing his scenes opposite, Guy Williams, and I won't even attempt to hum it. If I start humming, everybody's going to clear out because I can't sing or carry a tune to save my life. You got it.
It's called Family.
Yes.
And that was not written by John Williams. Everybody thinks it was, but it wasn't. It was somebody else. And sorry to say, I can't remember the name. Look on your CDs if you have them. It'll tell you who that was. But it was not written by John Williams. But it's a nice theme, and it goes on. They used it throughout the series, really.
Yeah, it was just a really nice piece. Hey, Lou, we're getting some comments about that B9 robot behind you there.
Oh, I thought you were going to say comments about some glare off my head or something.
No.
I was going to say I'll get my makeup person in here. The B9, yes, that's if you want to know anything about it,
Yes, please, Lou.
I told that in 2005. 2005, I joined the B9 Builders Club, and it was a good time to do it because all of these parts were available that whatever you couldn't make, you could buy. And I built most of that. I didn't do the bubble. That was done by somebody out on the West Coast, I believe. Some of the buttons I also purchased, but and later on I got a torso that was done by purchase fiberglass. I got a deal on it, but that was a great project. I had more fun doing that thing, and it actually talks. But I if I started, I might not be able to stop it, and then we're really in trouble. Some of the buttons I also purchased.
Maybe at the end we could actually do that and have it put on. That would be kind of cool. Everybody would be able to hear it then.
Yeah, the battery's dead in the remote that operates it. But it says like 100 different phrases. And I had the gentleman who did the original voice for the robot, Dick Toothfeld. I had him do 10 or 20 lines for me. I think I did it twice. And he worked relatively cheap. I think it was $100 he would do 10 lines for you. So, I mean, to have the actual original robot voice, it was well worth it. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But I got a whole lot of good stuff out of there, and I mixed it in with original dialogue from the show. And so between the two, it's kind of fun. He just keeps on talking, and it gets annoying after a while, but it's okay.
Hey, Catherine, glad you could join us. Catherine's saying it's robot. That's true, Catherine. It was always referred to as the robot in the series, but he was a model B9, which I believe was brought out. Was it Ghost Planet, Lou, in the second season?
One episode, Ghost Planet. Yes, it was the third episode?
Yes,
Or
it was
second episode?
third episode of the second season. Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
It was the robot planet, and they were trying to basically coerce the robot into becoming a servant of the cybernetics and to go against the Robinson family. And that's where we learned that he is a B9 robot. But to your point, Catherine, yes, he was always referred to as robot. Also, I just want to say hi to Bill Scarrato. Thanks for joining, Bill, and thank you for being on last week with me too for the Twilight Zone, and also to Captain Phil for episode number 1. It's much appreciated. Yes. So that was. Oh, and also Dennis is on, and he's saying about the Golden Boy because that was something that the robot was referred to when he was turned to gold.
I remember that, of course. Yeah, so that was the one episode with when he goes robot model B9, and that's the only time he ever said that, and somebody picked up on it, and it's been B9 ever since.
Yeah, and they ran with
There's
it.
also some people call him Gunter, with that Gunter. I can't remember what it stood for, but that sign back there actually says, let me see if I can read it. General Utility Non-Theorizing Environmental Robot.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Very cool.
I think that was from that episode in the third season where Smith went back to before the launch. I'm really losing my brain is going. I can't remember the titles of these episodes.
No, that's okay. You're talking about the Time Merchant.
That's it. With Crawford.
John.
His name.
John Crawford.
John Crawford.
Yes.
Yeah, he said he loved doing that episode. He said he hated working with Shatner on Galileo 7. But he liked working with
that's sad to hear. But you know what though? That was the chemistry that he had with Jonathan Harris that a lot of the actors had. Oh, yeah. It just seemed to really mesh though. But yeah, I think
Irwin was good. Irwin hired good people. He knew, his characters were always pretty much on the money. He just hired good actors and good characters. And not every show can make that claim. To 3 seasons, and they always got the right people for the right part.
Yeah,
that's important. I'm a filmmaker myself, so I know what goes into that. It's not all that easy to do. So,
no, definitely not.
Good job.
Yeah, I mean, he was he was definitely the master, if nothing else. I mean, when you think about everything he did. Oh, Squeaker just came on the set. But yeah, some of the different episodes from the first season that I really enjoyed. I mean, one of them that really was really good was the one with Michael Rennie, the Keeper, and actually that was a 2-part episode.
Oh,
and
that was that was top notch.
And he was known for, I think he had worked with Jonathan Harris, and that was it The Third Man, I believe?
Third Man.
Yeah.
Third Man. Yeah, I've seen some of those episodes, that was a good series too. And it's hard to find, but I have seen them on like really bad VHS copies of them. But
I've never seen that.
Get a chance. Do see them if you can, because it's good chemistry between the two. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like Jonathan Harris had said too. I mean, when he was going through through the 6th, 7th, 8th episode, he felt like his days were numbered. So what he did was he started sneaking his comedic bits into it, and he's just to try to lighten things up. And he was approached by Irwin Allen, and Irwin Allen said, and Jonathan Harris had told the story. He goes, I know what you're doing. Do more. And that's where he was given, carte blanche. I mean, he was given,
whatever he wanted to write. He wrote his own scenes, after that pretty much. And you take the scripts and nah.
Yeah.
This is what I'm gonna say. And they let him get away with it.
Yeah, and all those terms for the robot he came up with. I mean, he'd say bubble-headed booby and Neanderthal, nene, things like that. I mean,
it's funny.
Yeah,
He was quite a guy. I met him a couple of times, and he was always funny. That's all I can say. He's quite a guy.
It's funny. I first saw him at a Star Trek creation convention. It was in 1986. I believe it was at what was then the Penta Hotel in Manhattan.
Oh,
And I was actually and I was there with my Vince Fodi. I always call him Vince. Everybody knows him as Vinny Fodi. If you're out there, Vinny,
Hey,
Vince. And yeah, and what happened was, it was back when you could take pictures, there was no issues, and what have you. So then he was doing the autographs, went up to his autograph line, and I actually had asked him a question, in the audience at the time. I couldn't tell you what I asked him, but anyway, I got up to his table, and I said, would it be okay to take a picture? And then I'm trying to, I have this, old ancient camera, and I'm trying to take a photo of him, and it's not going. And he goes, "Roy asked a good question today, but he takes shitty pictures." And Vince and I were just like roaring, laughing. And here I am in front of, Jonathan Harris, and I was like, oh, I just got roasted. But I'll never forget that. It was a great moment.
You can't forget that. That's too funny.
Yeah.
Who was your first celebrity that you met, and just met, I should say, not an autograph, but just met?
The first celebrity. That's a really good question, and I actually have an answer. I was at an earlier convention in '86. It was down by Rutgers. It was in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and it was also a creation convention. And I had never been to a Star Trek convention prior to that. It was my first time. I got down there, was down there by myself, and it was funny too because I went into they had like some kind of exhibit going on and what have you, and they were doing a talk, and somehow Space 1999. They were showing slides of different shows, and they flashed a slide of 1999. It came up, and I did a big yay, and it was everybody was like cricket, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh shoot, you know what I mean? Because there wasn't a lot of 1999 fans there at the time. But I know, and we have a lot of 1999 fans on with us today too. So, but yeah, that's a true story. But anyway, I was like, yeah, I cheered it on. But when I was getting ready to leave that convention, I was in the elevator, and I was actually entering the elevator, and when I went in, who was there but Mark Leonard, Sarek from Star Trek, Spock's father. And I was like, I was 20 years old, or I just turned 20 years old, and, I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me like, I know you know who I am type of deal. And I was trying to be like, this, keeping it together, kind of being cool, and like, yeah, and then I said, how are you? And then he just looked at me and said, good. How are you? And I said, good. And I didn't want to be like the typical fan, like, oh, can I have your autograph? And, and what episode, how was it like doing the episode? Do you remember the dialogue from the episode? I was trying to keep it together, but I was like so excited because I had never met a celebrity before, in my life. And the only one prior to that, but, was Larry Holmes. I mean, my dad is a big boxing fan, and he was the heavyweight champ, and that was back in like 79. But anyway, I digress. But for me, Mark Leonard, so I just said to him, I said, are you going to be in the New York area for a while? And he just looked at me and he said, yeah, I'm going to be. And then I just kind of said, will you be doing autographs? And then he said, yes, I will be doing them later. And I said, okay. And I said, well, it was very nice to meet you. And then what happened was I exited, and I had to, I was actually leaving the convention, and it was just, I was like, wow, that was just like so cool. And that was my first celebrity meeting. What about you, Lou?
I was at the Commodore Hotel, if you remember that.
Yes.
We called it the Commode. It was pretty bad. And I was in the lobby. It was a big Star Trek convention in 1975, I think it was. Yes.
Wow.
75.
Nice.
And thousands and thousands of people, just like sardines packed in there. And I'm looking around just in awe of all of this, and I see this guy come in with his head up, and he's just walking toward the elevator, and I went like, that was George Takei. I'm like,
oh, cool.
Wow. Like, nobody's following him or anything, so I managed to shuffle through and squeeze through all these people and got into the elevator that he went into, and nobody even noticed him, which is, I couldn't believe. And so I get in there and I go, hello, Mr. Takei, how are you? He goes, oh, I'm pretty good. How are you? He's doing that bit. And
he has a very distinct voice. Lou, we lost you. You froze. Lou?
Yeah,
Lou?
I had just bought the book. How about now?
Okay, you're a little bit up. You froze again.
How about now? My back
You're back.
or my front?
It says our internet
Can you hear me?
connection is unstable. Uh-oh. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, I just purchased the book Making of Star Trek. Actually, it was the second time I had the book. I wore it out. The first one I got that I sent for, and then I picked up another one, and here I am. George is with me. I got this book, and I knew his picture was in there, so I'm flipping through it, and I found it. I said, "Could you please sign this?" He goes, "Oh, of course I can." He signed it, and that was the first time I ever met a celebrity. And it was so funny because nobody saw him.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I think it was just he didn't have sunglasses on. He didn't do anything that would make himself look like a celebrity, with a hat that's covering his eyes. He just walked right in. Nobody noticed. So that was my first celebrity.
That's
I
so
got my
awesome.
autograph around here somewhere, actually. So yeah. Lost in Space. Where were we on that? Oh, second season. We didn't get to that yet.
No, and one thing before we jump to the second season of Lost in Space, I have to say, there was one episode that too. I mean, where Robert Konishita. Am I pronouncing his last name correctly? Robert Konishita. Yes. Yeah. I always butcher names, and I apologize to everybody out there for that. He was the creator of Robbie the Robot, as well as the robot B9 from Lost in Space. And as everybody knows, Robbie the Robot was featured in the 1956 film Forbidden Planet, which was, that's got a staple in history, which goes without saying. But in the episode War of the Robots, Will finds what is called a robotoid, and it is Robbie the Robot. And it is featured, and he's bent on getting it back to where it needs to be so it's operational. But what happens is the family discovers that it's essentially evil, and they're neglecting their robot, and their robot pretty much kind of goes off, and they need it in order to save the family. And that episode to me seemed to really be like a landmark episode, because it was where they were kind of leading to where the robot was starting to develop a personality. But it was almost like it was the sense of family was coming through, and that connection with the Robinsons, and it was just more than a machine. I mean, I think it was giving the liberty to the writers. It was opening the doors for the writers, and also paving the way for what eventually would become, the threesome. It was Will the robot, and of course Dr. Smith. But that was a pivotal landmark episode, and I thought it was kind of cool too, because you had the two robots. I mean, that was neat. I just wished it was more of this is 1965, 1966, when they're battling. The mist comes out of the robot, where he has that scanner that you see in Island in the third episode, Island in the Sky, when they crash on the planet. And this mist comes out, and then what happens is he electrocutes the Robbie the Robot. But it would have been kind of cool if there was more of a space battle with it. But of course, it's 1965, 1966. Yeah. But I thought that was a pivotal episode for the series. And then another one that was
another favorite of mine. Obviously a favorite of mine, because I like both those robots. And let's go back to Bob Kinoshita. But he lived to be 100 years old, by the way.
Wow, God bless him.
And I had a friend who would see him occasionally. He lived in a group home, and he had no pictures on his wall or anything. So my friend asked me, he said, "Do you have a picture of you with the robots that you built?" And by the way, I built a Robbie, which is, you can't see it, it's over there. But
I know, it's amazing, Lou. It's amazing what you've created.
It's a full-size Robbie. Thank you. And so he said, "Why don't you send him a picture of you with the robots?" I went, "You don't have to twist my arm." Sure. So I did, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but that's Bob holding a picture of me in the middle with the two robots on each side.
That is so cool.
And the guy who took this picture said, "Bob never smiles like that." So that's like the first time anybody's ever gotten him in a photo doing that. So I feel honored that he felt that way about when he saw that photo. How cool is that?
Especially since, I mean,
One of my
because
favorite pictures.
he was in a nursing home and everything. So I mean, you really touched something that was really, it really, made a huge impression on him. And I think that's wonderful that you did that.
Yeah, he was in pretty good shape too up until the end. He lived to be 100, like I said. He kept saying, "I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it to 100," and he did. So, but he designed, the Jupiter 2. He didn't design the Gemini 12 from the pilot, but he did design the Jupiter 2 because they had to make it look like they fit. There's more. The lower deck and all that stuff had to look like it fit inside that thing, even though it didn't.
Yeah.
We always call it TARDIS technology.
Yep.
But he did what he could with it, and he was the production designer on that thing, and
no, it was definitely incredible.
I got more stories about him.
No, definitely. You're breaking up.
The guy who played the role. All right, Bobby May. He, the poor guy. First of all, I'll start with the end. He got cancer. And then his house burned down.
I remember hearing about that.
End your life. And that's kind of what happened to him.
Tragic.
And it's sad. His daughter is still around. She's on Facebook. You can find her. I can't remember her name offhand, but she's on there and likes to hear stories about her dad and all that, so which is great. But Bob was a funny guy. He was kind of a comedian. He worked with Jerry Lewis, and he had a really good sense of humor. And I don't know if I can't really repeat stuff he was telling me.
No, yeah.
on here, but we talked about the business, and he said I was doing extra work at the time, and he said, "Don't let them. I'll clean it up. I'll just say, don't let them kid you. Says they need you more than you need them, basically." And so I had a picture with Bobby May.
Very nice. Lew, was that taken? Where was that taken at? Was that at Chiller?
Chiller, of course.
Of course, yeah, Chiller Theater. I think I remember meeting Bobby May at Chiller Theater. That's the one thing, and I'm putting a shout out to Chiller because over the years, I had the opportunity to meet some of the actors from the series as well, and I remember meeting Mark Goddard and Bill Mumy, and I have to say, about the both of them, Bill Mumy was extremely nice when it came to my son Ryan. Ryan was probably maybe like 9 years old at the time, and he was kind of shy and everything. And we went up, and Ryan, I know you're out there, so I'm not trying to embarrass you, but it was just a cool moment. And Bill Mumy signed the autograph, and he was just like, no, that because I was going to give him money for it, because that's what you do. I mean, that's how they make their money these days with that. And he just said no. He goes, that's okay. And even with Mark Goddard, he was really cool at Ryan. And what happened was, I was introducing him. I said, he was Major West on the series. He was the pilot. And then, Mark Goddard goes, yeah. He goes, I wasn't really that good of a pilot. He goes, they used to call me Crash West, And it was, he goes, I crashed the ship all the time. And it was just, they're really, really nice people. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet Marta Kristen and and Angela Cartwright. And all of them are just very, very pleasant. So it's really cool that when we can go to these type of conventions and autograph meetings, and the majority of the people that you meet at these events, it's it's always a pleasant experience. In fact, I think down the road that might be something we'll cover on this show. I might do a special segment about meeting actors from television, science fiction television series from the 60s and the 70s at science fiction conventions. Maybe do it like as a kind of like an off type of a special edition, because there's really wonderful stories for the most part that you can talk about, and it's really cool. But that's awesome that you got to have such a great conversation with Bobby May, because he was and from what I understood, he was very proud to be in that role. I mean, he took that very seriously, and I think am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. He and another thing, that was a very physical role. People don't realize that he had to carry when the tread section of that robot wasn't attached.
Oh, Lew, I lost you.
He had to carry the weight of that whole thing on his shoulders. Oh. Every time I talk, I seem to get cut off. Somebody's out to get me. Uh, I'll try that again. When Bobby was wearing that suit without the tread section, there was a significant amount of weight involved because he had 2 motorcycle batteries in that thing to power the lights. So that's like 25 pounds there or something like that.
Wow.
Plus the weight of the suit, and it was a lot. And he had to be in that thing, for hours at a time. It wasn't just like 10 minutes, or not even that, 10 seconds. You see him on screen or whatever. He had to stand there and wait till he reached in good shape to do it. And
absolutely,
I tried to get into one of those costumes. Somebody had built a costume version of it. This one here is just a stand-up. It doesn't do anything. But the costume version, I was in that. I got in the lower section.
Nope, Lou, you broke up again. Say again.
The torso part over me. I wish I could have tried it, but I couldn't get the torso over me. I was a little heavier at the time. I didn't fit in the suit at that time. But just what little experience I had with that, it's very claustrophobic in there. And I give Bob a lot of credit for doing that, and he loved doing it. That was the really weird part. He'd smoke cigars while he was inside that thing.
Wasn't there a story about where he got locked in, and there was there was a story about where the smoke is coming out of the robot, and they were worried it was on fire?
Bill and Mark locked him into that costume. We'll be right back, and one of the prop men was supposed to get him out of it, and he says, "Oh, we'll take care of it. You go to lunch." So he said, "All right." So the guy left and took lunch. So in the meantime, Mark and Bill said, "Let's go." So they went and had lunch, left Bobby in that suit. And about halfway through lunch, they decided that was kind of cruel. Maybe we should just go. Let's go let him out. So they go onto the set, and they see smoke coming out of this thing. They go, something caught fire. He's dead in there. He's burned up.
God.
They go, Bobby. And they take the head off it. He's got a pen light in his mouth, reading Variety magazine. Hey, look at this! Disney's starting a new project. It was like he didn't even notice that he was locked in there for half an hour or whatever it was. That's how much he liked it.
Yeah, that's amazing that he could actually read in that thing. If you think about it, because it's so confining, right?
Yeah, I couldn't fit in it. I don't know how he did it, but yeah.
No, that's a wonderful.
One more robot photo, and this was from Bayside Expo in Boston, near Boston anyway, outside of Boston, back in the 80s. And you can tell because I've got hair there and it's dark, but that's the actual real robot.
Wow.
It's not a replica.
Nice.
And there's a couple
you're broken up again.
of parts that were refabricated. Bubble was not again. A couple of parts were refabricated and it got painted and all that, but it is basically the original robot. And Kevin Burns, who owns the show, used to carry it around with him, not on his back, have it shipped out to wherever he was doing these conventions. I met Kevin and didn't even realize who he was at the time. I just thought he was the guy who was carrying the robot with him, but no, he was the owner. And he doesn't do it anymore because it's kind of fragile.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to risk damaging it anymore. So.
Well, Kevin Burns
I was happy to get a photo with you.
Kevin Burns has done a lot for Lost in Space fandom. I mean, he has kept it alive. I mean, he's revitalized it, and with the release of the Blu-ray set for the 50th anniversary, I mean, I remember when that came out, and that was September. I think they actually released it on September 15th of 2015 to celebrate that. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely.
You can also thank Sheila Allen for that, Irwin's widow.
Yes.
Because he approached her with that project and said, would you like to fund it? Because it wasn't cheap.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't.
Remastering every episode, all 3 seasons, plus some additional material. And I think it was like $1 million.
Oh my goodness.
Have that done.
Wow.
And she said, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. So you can thank the late Sheila Allen for that, because that probably wouldn't have gotten done otherwise.
No, that's true.
Fox or CBS didn't want to put up the money for it. So there you go.
You know what? You know what too, Lou? Oh, Martin's bringing up in a comment that didn't somebody do the Chariot? What is it? John Antoinette? Am I pronouncing his last name correct? And he's in Boston. He owns a business, and he actually recreated, I should say, the Chariot that was utilized.
Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've
John Antonellis.
John Antonellis.
He goes by John Anton. He goes by also. Maybe he's watching us right now. I don't know. Hey, John.
I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. I actually had the opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I actually had the opportunity to be in that Chariot. They had that at Chiller, and it was also at another science fiction convention. And it was really cool because Bill Mumy and Marta Kristen and Angela Cartwright were there for that. And, they were posing with everybody, and Mark Garter too. So it was kind of neat. But the workmanship and the detail that he put into that was absolutely amazing. I mean, that's something, if any Lost in Space fan out there, if you have the opportunity to see it, definitely check it out, because his work is incredible. And I can only imagine the money that he put into that, and, the time that was put into that.
Oh, he went all out on having all the original props and controls and everything, the dials, all of the lights, everything. He had a person I know, actually, Chris Pappas, who found all this stuff and helped him build that thing, basically. And it's very. I've sat in it. I've seen it maybe two times anyway, maybe three times. He had it at three times. He had it at 2 auto shows. And that was kind of fun. And then he brought it to a convention outside of Boston one time, indoors.
Yeah.
And but he did a great job on that thing. I mean, it's as good as it can get. I think his paint was off a little bit, and he's since repainted it.
Oh, okay.
To a proper shade. It was a little too dark of a gray. And I think he redid it. I know he did, actually. But I haven't seen any mention of it in a while, so I don't know what's going on with that.
No, it's you're absolutely right about that. It's been a while, but it would be.
It's out.
What's that? Oh, I lost you, Lou. Are you with me, Lou?
No, I didn't say anything. I was listening to you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention too before we start to wrap things up. Start up a little bit. The final episode of the first season, Follow the Leader, when John Robinson is possessed. I mean, I thought that was a really excellent episode too, and it really dealt with the relationship of father and son, and especially at the end, it's like love conquers all. When he, some people might say it was corny, but again, it was nice. It was good, and
a lot of people remember that episode that aren't necessarily fans, but they watched it, and they always say, "I remember the episode where he was going to throw Will over the side of that outcrop, whatever it was, into the hole." And it's like, but people remember that one, so that's good.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Oh, Vince is online, Lou. He's joined us, and hey, Vince, how you doing out there? Good to see you joined. And then Alex McDonald. Hey, Alex, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. And yeah, I mean, Lost in Space. I mean, we've pretty much covered like the first season. Oh, Martin Ben.
Love to do a follow-up.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have to do it. Martin's asking about the new reboot series. Martin, I'm not going to be talking about that because that's actually present day, but I can say I have watched season 1 and I enjoyed it. I tend to be a purist when it comes to these shows because I love the classics, I love the originals, but I can actually, and I'm just talking for myself, rate, what was and what they're doing currently. And sometimes I like it, sometimes I hate it. And I'll be honest with you, I try to be fair in regards to that. It's just, I think a lot of people, it depends upon your preference, but it's just sometimes they hit the mark, and you know what, they do just as good, and maybe some people would say they do better because 50 years later you've got more futuristic sets. You could say maybe the writing is taken a step notch up. But then, you know what? Sometimes they totally miss it, and I'm not going to even go for a debate about that. But I'll just say that I have watched season 1. I have enjoyed it for what it is, but the classic series for me is the classic series, and that's close to my heart. But thanks for asking about that. And your thoughts on that, Lou?
I feel pretty much the same. I really love the new series. I got to be honest. A lot of people don't want to hear it, but it's like Roy said. You can separate the two things. You got nostalgic part. You got what it was, and you've got something new. It's a little more expensive production, obviously. I think one episode costs more than the whole series of the original, but I like it, and that doesn't mean you have to. But
right.
I they did a fantastic job on that as a reboot. Dr. Smith sure is evil.
Yeah,
you just want it.
Yeah, Parker Posey is hitting her mark with that, that's pretty much our opinions about it, and that might be something I just want to give a shout out to, because Mike Rizzo is actually just debuted last Wednesday with his online show, and it's he also has featured co-hosts, and he had Mary Beth with him last Wednesday. That's on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. to join him right here on Facebook. And he's covering science fiction television shows, the 80s, 90s, and double zeros. So I just want to give a shout out to him in regards to that. And, maybe that'll be something that'll be discussed, down the road as well, too. But I guess for right now, though, Lou, any closing thoughts you'd like to say about classic Lost in Space? I think maybe down the road we could, revisit it and, maybe do a part 2 of this, and talk about it.
Oh, sure.
Just because it is 3 seasons, and that's there's so much to it. We really covered a lot of the first season. We didn't really delve into the second and third, and I did see a couple comments out there. I saw from Diane, I saw from Mike about the Great Vegetable Rebellion, and that's the the episode that makes everybody just kind of quake. And, it's just like Tybo.
Not the worst. It was not the worst episode, but it was pretty bad. But it was entertaining. That was the thing about Vegetable Rebellion. It was very entertaining, even though it was utterly ridiculous. But there were worse ones, like West of Mars. I thought was horrible. And there was another, the one with Penny with not the beauty contest, where she was the princess.
Oh yeah,
Artie Johnson.
Artie Johnson, yeah. Wow. It's funny talking about the second season. The second season, and I had this discussion with a Lost in Space fan not too long ago, a couple years ago. For me, I liked probably 2/3 of the first season. I liked, and I think maybe you and I actually had talked about this too, Lou, obviously. It was the first 3 episodes in the second season, the first half of the 4th episode, Forbidden World, right up until when they crash. Yeah. And then there was maybe a handful of episodes through the second season that I was okay with. I mean, you had the one where the robot grew, and it was kind of like a Fantastic Voyage when they're going through the robot, and then you had the Sadicons. I mean, the wreck of the robot. I really enjoyed that. And there's a few others, and then the third season they tried to they revamped the opening theme. They got back into space. I always loved when the Jupiter 2 was in space. I was a huge fan of that. I thought that was like the coolest thing. And it's like the show really just went into a different direction. And then what happened was it progressed, and then they started just kind of like missing. And then, episode 22 of the third season was, the Great Vegetable Rebellion.
I think even as a kid, I had turned off by that time. I love. It's hard as that is to believe. I about halfway through the third season, I remember not watching it anymore. I don't know why, but I don't know what else was on. There must have been something, but I remember just kind of losing interest in it. And I never saw those episodes until they went into syndication. So it was like watching a whole new show at that time in the early 70s, I think it was.
Yeah.
When Channel 56 in Boston, that was the station around here that aired that every afternoon at 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. And that's for the first time I saw some of those third season episodes. So that was kind of fun. I didn't remember the space pod at all.
Oh, the space pod was so cool.
When I first saw that in syndication, it's like, how could I miss that? But I did not remember that.
No. But, it's funny. It's funny you're saying that, because I remember, because I grew up, we lived in a town called Wallington, New Jersey, and it's in Bergen County, and we were right on the, right next to New York City. And essentially what it was is you had channels 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. And 13, that was almost like a joke, and that was, PBS. And Channel 5 was WNEW-TV out of New York, and I think it was at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, like you were saying, Lou, they actually had Lost in Space on. And essentially, they would only show the color episodes. And I even as a kid, I remember watching that, and it's like, when they had the second season on, I was just like, but then when it was the third season, I was like, this is cool. And then my parents had moved out to Lopakong, New Jersey, which is, a township outside of Phillipsburg. And we were able to pick up Philadelphia stations, and Channel 29 out of Philadelphia. I remember when they were running the black and white episodes, and the fact that the Reluctant Stowaway was going to be on. And again, it was around 1986, and fortunately we had a VCR, and I taped it, and I was like, you got to remember, this is the days before, you were getting video cassettes were available, but they were an arm and a leg to purchase, at the store. You have DVDs, you didn't have, the Blu-rays, and you didn't have the internet. I mentioned this before. Starlog magazine was my friend back, growing up in the 70s and 80s. That was where you got all the source material. In fact, Starlog number 21, and I'll never forget, it had Buck Rogers on the cover. Gil Gerard and was on there, and that had the Lost in Space episode guide in there. And I remember going to Walden Books and getting that, and I thought, how cool is this? Here's a complete episode guide, and they had a write-up about Guy Williams, or not Guy Williams, it was, they mentioned him, back from his Zorro days, and then Angela Cartwright was interviewed, and there, she was talking about the Sound of Music and everything. But that was a cool time. You remember Starlog, right?
Starlog was the go-to.
It really was. But, well, we're coming up on our hour, so we started a little late, so I extended a little bit past of 8 o'clock. I just want to thank you, Lou, for joining me tonight. It was great to have you as a co-host, and nostalgia, taking a trip back, into the 1960s and talking about Lost in Space. It's definitely a fan favorite. Again, I want to say thank you to I'm backing up Captain Phil for episode 1, Bill Scarato for episode number 2, Robert Cash for episode 3, being my co-host, and again, Lou, thank you for being my co-host for episode 4. We had a lot of technical difficulties Friday night with episode 3, and the sound quality was terrible. We had a little hiccups tonight, but we're going to revisit Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea down the road shortly. It'll be coming up again, and we'll talk about that, because I do want to come back to that, because the recording was a little bit off. I am going to be having these videos saved to YouTube, so at some future time you can actually listen to these. You don't have to come in live, but it's great to have everyone on live, because then we can interact with everybody and just kind of reminisce about these shows as we're talking about it. And also, you can go to my Facebook page, Roy Bjellquist, and you just as you are there now, and you can just scroll down, and I'll keep them up there. And I also have a page for the show, and again, it's Remembering Science Fiction Shows of the 1960s and 1970s, and we are broadcasting twice a week right now. It's Fridays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 7 p.m. So we will be back next Friday, and we will be talking about another science fiction show of the 1960s, and I will be announcing that show in the next day or two. So please stay tuned. And again, Lou, any final comments?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the director's cut of this episode. What we can put in there, maybe 3D at some point. Who knows?
Woo.
Nothing much. I hope, we'll have to do this again. That hour went way too fast, actually. I was worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about, and well, we just covered one season, so yeah, let's do it again sometime.
No, we definitely will. So I just want to say, everybody, thank you, Lou, and everyone.
All right. Well,
I'm going to end it with, as I always do, with live peace, live long, and prosper. Stay safe. This is a really tough time for everybody. I hope this was a good distraction for everybody. I mean, with everything going on in the world, so hopefully we'll be able to all socialize and get together, and be able to not only connect through, like we are through the internet, but actually physically connect and just be able to hang out and do projects, things that are fun together, and just be able to be together. So again, thank you for joining. This is Roy Bjellquist, and thank you again, Lew Place. And
anytime.
have a good night. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.